All right, Justin Sherman, everybody, live from Clarksville, Arkansas. So, Justin, thanks for hopping on here with me for a little bit, and I got some things I want to visit with you about today. But how are things going in Clarksville?
Things are going really well. There's a lot happening, a lot of growth that's been taking place.
Yep.
Of course, we could talk data center all day long, but the leadership of Clarksville has been really good about um, casting vision for growth, and that's really good for our industry.
Yeah, yeah. There's the data centers going in. They bought hundreds of acres, and they're probably going to buy some more. And so that's really generated for probably the next 5 to 8 years. You're gonna be busy up in
Very,
Clarksville. Yeah, but
very.
that's a good thing. That's great. That's a
Mhm.
great thing. Um, and then y'all have had a bad storm up there the last couple of weeks because I got from property management there. I had a metal pipe that drove through my house, one of my rent houses up there. Yeah, just
Oh my gosh!
right through it, through the sheetrock on the other side.
Wow.
So yeah, that was fun to come back to and be like, hey, there's a metal rod sticking out of our sheetrock. So,
No kidding.
Justin, how long you been in the business, man?
Um, I got my license January 2025, so a year and 4 months.
Year and 4 months.
Um, mhm.
Uh,
I've been,
how how much different is it now that you're looking back a year and 4 months from when you first got in to
mhm.
what it is now? What perspective has changed the most about real estate, realtors, and what you do?
My gosh. So there's so much. Whenever you first get in, um, you know, the what you perceive as the barrier to entry, though, yeah, it's not incredibly high, um, but that barrier to entry is not necessarily just the test and passing it to get your license. It's also the growing pains. You're an independent contractor. You have to set up your own systems. You have to come up with your own processes, um, and then not to mention the weeks, months that it takes to get your first check. A lot of people don't necessarily talk about that, nor do they really understand or expect that whenever they get into the business. Um, I got my license in January, but I didn't get my first commission check until May. So
Hmm.
that was 5 months of just working. And I remember the conversation with my broker, Jacob, being in his office one day and just feeling very discouraged and wondering, is this it for me? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? And then the very next month, getting that first closing under my belt, and then closing another one the month after that, and then it takes a while to get rolling,
Yeah.
and that was the biggest struggle for me getting started.
Well, let me give you some statistics here, and you tell me if you agree with them or not. Okay.
Hmm.
It says this is coming from Inman, which is a real estate magazine. It says dropout failure rates. Inman reports that 71% of real estate agents didn't close a single transaction last year.
Hmm.
71%. Commonly cited industry figure is roughly 87% of new agents fail within the first 5 years.
Hmm.
And so you agree with those stats?
Absolutely. I mean, you can say some of those stats may be padded by people who have inactive licenses or what have you, but I mean, I've seen people get in and out really fast. Um, the failure rate is super high, so that doesn't surprise me at all.
And you think it's because the expectation coming into it of I saw this on HGTV. I think I love houses. I love showing houses. I love talking to people. And so there's this idea of what it is. And then when you get into it, it's like, hmm, I didn't expect that. So do you think that there's some uh, reality that kind of sits in within the first couple of months?
It's so multifaceted. I think, from my perspective, there is a perception problem. People have an expectation of what it's going to look like, the glitz and the glamour of selling houses and walking into luxury homes and getting to show them off and take pictures and do video and all that kind of stuff. And, yes, there are successful realtors, but there are so many more failing realtors. And that part is not really, I don't think it's highlighted or explained enough on the front end to people who are getting into this. And like I say, with it being multifaceted, there's, this perception of, oh, I saw so-and-so get into this. If they can do it, I can do it. There's that, and then not understanding that you are an independent contractor. You are working for yourself, even though you're affiliated with a brokerage, and they do provide you with a level of training depending on where you're at. It's not really understood that you're going to stand up your own system, and a lot of your success and a lot of your failure rises and falls on the type of system you can set up or non-existent system that you set up. Can you follow up with people? Can you put yourself out there? There's so many things that go into getting your business off the ground, and I don't think enough people come into the business with the understanding that they are starting a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you said that, it made me think of a quote, and it's by James Clear, The Atomic Habits. And he says, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems."
Mm-hmm.
And so
Absolutely.
we actually read this book as a group, and it's really good because as you had articulated, it's really about how you set yourself up for success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the systems, and about every single day, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like before we got on the phone just a minute ago, just before we got on this call, you were telling me how you were setting stuff up through your day on your transactions, on your follow-ups, and everything else. And it's pretty cool because you're using AI to do a lot of that stuff. So that's kudos to you. You're one of the probably 5% of all agents that are doing that. But that tells you how important systems are to you. And as long as you get the systems figured out, then you can start to plug and play on a bigger scale, right? You can start to grow,
Absolutely.
and that growth will see, it may not at first, but once you get it down and you start to give and take, it'll start to kind of build upon itself, don't you think?
Absolutely. And I've explained this to Jody before, that I'm a very systems oriented person. My success in my previous working career path was it hinged on my ability to work within and improve systems. I promoted because I was given systems that were a giant cluster, and I was able to look at those systems and find inefficiencies, find gaps, and close those gaps and make those systems more efficient. That's why I promoted the way that I did. And what I realized really fast within real estate was, though I'm a systems-minded person and I rely on and depend on systems to be successful, the one thing that I had never really considered was I have no experience building a system from scratch. And that was the curve that I had to learn, that standing the whole thing up was one of the bigger challenges for me. What is this going to look like? How do I want to start out? And then realizing, with how I'm wired, once it's stood up, I will find the inefficiencies and I will find the gaps, and those will get closed, and it'll only get better as time goes on. But yeah, that was something that you talk about perspectives changing. one of the perspectives that I had that changed from getting into the business was I'm starting a business from scratch on my own with, yes, training and lessons from my brokerage and my brokers and other people who I would work alongside. But also, I have to stand this thing up on my own. And I had no experience with that and didn't know where to start.
Yeah. And what system do you feel like most agents miss? Is it during the transaction? Is it during the prospecting? Is it, where do you feel like the biggest gap is in the real estate industry in general?
That's a really great question because I want to say my answer is just yes.
Yeah. Just every flip
Because
at everything. Yeah.
I don't think there are enough people in our industry who really build systems, who have good systems. I see so much chaos and disorganization, and just in the first year and 4 months that I've been a realtor, even having the minimal experience that I have, I've gotten compliment after compliment from other realtors, other agents who have said that working with me was so easy and such a breeze because I stayed on top of communications, because I kept all of the forms and contracts and everything moving. And it's really great being new in the industry to hear that from other people who have been in the business for 5 to 10 to 20 years that, hey, you made this transaction really easy and really smooth.
Right. Yeah. How has AI been able to help you in those systems? Create
So,
more efficiencies.
so much. And really, for me, AI's impact on me and my business has been with the origination. Because, like I said, once I get into a system, I can spot its inefficiencies and I can spot its gaps and I can find ways to close those. But my Achilles heel was the origination of it. AI helped me stand that whole thing up. And once it helped me stand it up, I was able to look at it, how it operated, how it spoke, how it communicated with me, communicated to my other connected platforms, and I was able to look at it and say, I don't really like this. I think this needs to be tweaked, or I work better with visual elements. So let's see how we can incorporate some visual elements here. Can we build a dashboard that gives me an at a glance? This is what my day looks like, and I'm not having to hunt for all this information in 5, 10, 15 different places. It's all in one location. And then not only that, but I'm getting so much more work done in such a shorter amount of time. Things that would take me hours are taking me minutes. And in real estate, time is so super critical
Mm-hmm.
because everything is so time sensitive, from your contracts to your communications with your clients to your prospecting. And then outside of your business and outside of the industry, you have your family at home. I mean, I have a wife who, she goes to work in a physical brick and mortar building in an office that she has set hours for. And then we have 3 kids, one who's in a public school, 2 who are in daycare. And if they're out of school, what do?
Right.
For a while, we didn't even have my parents here. It was just us. So we had to figure out, what does our life look like with our kids when we don't have help? And that meant I needed flexibility because my wife doesn't have that. And where can I get flexibility? And when we kind of settled in on real estate, that's been kind of the liberating point for us. Is yes, it's a pain to take your kids to a showing sometimes because you want to appear professional and cleaned up and buttoned up and proper, and in the back of your mind the whole time you're thinking, oh, they probably think I'm just the most unprofessional person because my kids, they're here, and not only are they here, maybe they're arguing, or maybe they're getting into something, or whatever. But it's finding that line and that balance of, um, you know, we're all human. We all have lives. We are not our job title. We are people who happen to have jobs and who also happen to have kids. And sometimes that looks like my kids are, sitting in the lobby while I'm at a closing table with a client, So, yeah, that's, I think for me, AI is that tool that grants me time back. And
Right.
that's so super critical to me.
Justin, when you first got in, I guess it'd been probably a couple months, and you came to one of our sales meetings, and I said, hey, this was probably March or April of last year, so it's about a year ago, I guess. And I said, hey, I'm gonna start coaching some people up, like just one-on-one. Me and you had a couple of sessions where we coached up, and one of the things that I was telling you is, hey, you got to have a mission, you got to have a vision, and then after that, we got to have strategy, right?
Sure.
And I've changed that a little bit to say, you got to have identity, you got to have purpose, and out of that comes the strategy. So
Yes.
after we had that conversation, we had some really good talks. I could see a difference in how you operated at that point. And I think Jacob would echo that. And it wasn't because of anything I said. I just gave you information. But what would be, let's just say, what's your purpose? And you've already kind of hit on it a little bit, but I think the human point of that, like you have an AI, which is great, artificial intelligence helping you do that, right? But that's not your vision. That's not your purpose. So tell us, what's your purpose in doing this real estate thing?
Honestly, if you were to boil it down, everything I do for my family. It's building a legacy for my family. And that's not I'm trying to build a real estate business that I can pass on to my kids. It's hey, what kind of life do I want to give my kids? And real estate is just how I can achieve that. If I were not doing real estate, can I sit here and say that I would be able to coach both of my daughter's softball teams? I've got my oldest daughter's in 10U softball with Johnson County Girls Club, and my middle child, she's on a 6U team for Johnson County Girls Club. I don't think I'd ever be able to coach both of those teams if it weren't for me doing what I do. And none of that is I'm in real estate to make money, to give them X, Y, or Z. It's real estate gives me a framework where I get to dictate my schedule a little bit. Yes, we are always on call, and yes, we always have to be available to our clients, but at the same time, I have the flexibility to be there for my kids. And when you say purpose, one of my greatest purposes in life is to raise good, contributing humans to this world. And one day, I want my kids to look back on my time in real estate and then be thankful for the fact that, yes, there are times where I'm working late, and yes, there are times that I'm working out of town, but also, had it not been for real estate, they wouldn't have had the experience of having their dad be their coach and be able to pour into their life on just another level. So for me, that's my purpose is my family and the legacy that we leave behind us.
Yeah, well, can't beat that. Yeah, I mean, you got 3 kids, I've got 3 kids, and every day we look at them and say, I'm going to work for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'm honoring God in that endeavor as well. Making sure that what we do, what my identity is, and what my purpose is are aligned, and that creates unity out of that for my family and for our business. And I'm sitting here looking at these business principles that are about to be hung up in every office, and one of them, the very first one, is people over profit. And we talked about that at the kickoff, and I think that's probably the purpose for us as well. Purpose for you, purpose for me, anybody that works for our company is that we put people over profit,
Right.
and that will create more and more business if we look at people instead of transactions.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's what's the separator from a lot of us is that it's not a number, it's not just a name on a contract. These are
Right.
people that we're helping find home, where they can have
Absolutely.
those family moments with their kids and leave that legacy for a lifetime, right?
Well, and you talk about that people over profit, for us in real estate, and I would say this to anyone, the best client for me is a repeat client.
Hmm.
And the way you get that is you put that person over profit. And if you do that, people will trust you
Hmm.
and people will come back to you. And if they hear of someone else who has a real estate need, be it buying, selling, whatever, your name, your face, who you are, how you treated them, that all comes back to them.
Right.
And they pass that forward. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about treating people right and going above and beyond to serve the people in front of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Serve being a servant isn't about being in position.
Mm-hmm.
And being a servant is saying I'm putting their needs above my own. And I think that's what we do for our kids, right? You go back to our purpose to go that for our kids, but it also for our clients as well. We want them to experience something with us that they feel like they can come back to us and tell their mom and dad or tell their kids, hey, there's a legacy that we use as a family, Justin Sherman. Yeah. So when families move in here from California, they call Justin Sherman up. Why? Because
Mm-hmm.
the experience was so good from their mom and dad that they want to use the kids and their kids and their kids and their kids. So really, it becomes a legacy of we use Justin Sherman in our house. You know,
Yes,
and what a great statement that is.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a dream. You know.
Yeah. Well, Justin, hey man, I appreciate your time. You're doing great up there in Clarksville. All you guys are doing great up there. We're super proud of all of you. And even though you got a questionable broker up there, and my brother, you still seem to be doing wonderful. No, I'm just kidding, Jay. I'm just kidding. You do awesome up there, bud. But is there anything else that you want to tell anybody before we get off here?
Um, you know, sure. Eh, I told Jody this. I said, Moore and Company has really done so much for me. From the brokers to the brokerage itself. It's done a lot for me, and that's another one of those perception issues that you have whenever you get into this industry and get into this business. You don't really understand the importance of the brokerage that you choose and the people you surround yourself with. And I will say that, um, I did get input from my neighbor who happens to be the president of U of O. He recommended Moore and Company, and I just walked into the office one day and I saw Jacob, talk to him about getting a real estate license, and he was very very helpful, very informative. I had spoken to another local agent, and they were somewhat dismissive, not terribly, but Jacob really sat and took the time to tell me this kind of what you do, this is what it looks like, these are the dangers and the pitfalls of the industry. And he was very straightforward with me about certain things. But ever since then, I always saw Moore and Company as the place where the brokers are really there for their people, and they care about their people being equipped for anything that comes their way. And I can say that at the end of the day, that the brokerage you choose is so crucial in your success or your failure in this business.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do, and that just echoes what we've been trying to accomplish for a long time. When we moved up to Clarksville, I'll give a shout out to Rusty Hargrave because, he was the first guy to be the broker up there, and he did such a great job. And Jay's done a great job up there, and we've just really wanted to embrace Clarksville and embrace the agents up there and show that there was a different way of doing business than the same old, same old. And I think the community has embraced us. Our agents have taken the principles that we have, just like you and all the others, Deb and Gina and everybody, Levi up there, Melissa. You've taken all our principles, and you've used them to not only just make us look good, but make the community look good. And I think that, so I get proud when we see good successes like you, Justin, and everybody else up there, is because it's really about taking a community and showing them that there is a better way to do this. There is a better way to do this business. And it doesn't have to be all about yourself and what you can get out of this. It's about what you can give somebody else. Mm-hmm. And then once you see that it is better to give than receive, it's like, man, this thing really opens up in a whole other way. And so to feel that experience and to see the success is just great sitting from here. So, Justin, thank you for your time, man. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to getting up to Clarksville soon and talking to you guys.
Yeah, come have lunch with us again.
I'm going. Every time I come up there, y'all twist my arm and we go to Casper. So I'm not gonna be upset about that at all. So, all right, man. I appreciate you. Thanks, Justin.
All right. Thank you, Caleb.